David, thank you. Police shoot a man on his own doorstep. He's recovering in the hospital today from a gunshot wound to his shoulder.
It happened in Dalton early this morning. News Channel 9's Allison Levine is at that house. Allison, who called the police on this man and why?
Josh, Latricia, the man's wife called the police around 1:30 a.m. from the house behind me here. Now, she told dispatch that her husband was waving a machete and a hammer around while her children were inside. Now, she said today that that was a really difficult call for her to make, given her husband's diagnosis with a common mental illness.
The officers arrived on the scene in hopes of taking things under control.
Police say they quickly learned that the man aggressively waving an iron rod was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Again, it's an ongoing issue, mental illness.
Bonnie Moore advocates for people living with mental illness and their families.
More people have a mental illness than any other type of disease.
She also trains law enforcement on how to deal with people with mental illness in heated situations like this one.
Going into a situation, all of a sudden you realize that somebody is in the middle of a psychotic episode.
The officers approached the front door, giving little distance between them.
10 feet, maybe. So when he exited the house, yelling, very aggravated, agitated, and all that. Like I say, the officers felt very threatened at that point.
Moore says at that point, de-escalation tactics are key.
Start building rapport so that there's some trust there, that they will listen to the law enforcement instead of all going into a situation and start screaming, at them.
He refused to obey commands, verbal commands continually.
For the public and for officers, there are a lot of misconceptions about people living with mental illness.
People with mental illness or bipolar are very unpredictable. They're very capable and have shot individuals.
That's typically not true. People with mental illness are typically the victims.
Something the man's wife says was the case. She didn't want to talk on camera, but said her husband is not an aggressive man. She was nervous to call the police, fearing for how they might react to her husband, but says she believes they did the right thing.
It's a very hard call, and the officers have to make a split-second decision.
The man's wife told me today that her husband was in a manic state and that he thought that the police officers were threatening his family. That's why he continued to act aggressively when they approached the house. She also said that he is now recovering from his injuries and is expected to make a full recovery. Reporting live in Dalton, Allison Levine, News Channel 9.
Allison, thank you. The Whitfield County Sheriff's Office is now working with the GBI on this investigation. Today, the sheriff said he will take recommendations from the GBI and the district attorney's office when it comes to whether or not to charge